advice to anyone getting into commercial real estate, people think somehow, some way, residential and commercial are tied, and they're really not.
You sometimes turn down deals because you just know that it may not be a good fit.
Of course.
When you found the time to write a book, it seems like you're giving away a lot of trade secrets.
Give it all away. I'm a divorced dad, and I'm raising 2 boys.
Okay.
And they're everything to me. And in some ways, I wrote the book. I had them in mind. I grew up wanting to be a salesperson, and I started to read Earl Nightingale. I read them all. I loved them.
Made $1 million worth of commission, or did you go out and spend it and buy a new car, or what'd you do with the first $1 million?
Honestly, at that moment, I bought it. My new book, Power Broker, is available now on Amazon. We cover the 9 crucial skills you need for success, the same skills I use to build an 8-figure business. You can check it out using the link below.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm privileged today. It's January 10th, 2024. I'm privileged today to be having a conversation with Rae Koenigsberg, who is a real estate broker, commercial real estate broker, and the owner of American Investment Properties. He's also the author of a new book called Power Broker, How to Be Successful in Business and Life. Good afternoon, Rae.
Good afternoon, Ray.
So tell us a little bit about American Investment Properties. It's a commercial brokerage?
It is a commercial brokerage firm. Yeah, we sell commercial properties on Long Island. We specialize in shopping centers and office buildings. And the firm is going to be 24 years old, founded in 23 years old, founded in 2001. And I am president, CEO, founder of the company. It's my passion, selling shopping centers and office buildings, and having a staff of sales associates doing the same thing, selling commercial real estate properties.
I want to circle back and talk a little bit more about American Investment Properties and how you got into the business. But before we do that, let's get to the question that everybody wants to know. It's January. Everyone's back from vacation and the holidays and so forth. What is the state of the commercial real estate market? What does the future look like?
Excellent. Obviously, in the last 24 months, we've seen interest rates double overnight. We watched them go from 3% to 6%. In the commercial world, a little bit higher in the residential world, but so it was a shock to the system. The Fed raised rates. Now the Fed is talking about making Fed cuts to interest rates in 2024. So there's a couple of factors involved. Number one, there's always a certain velocity of real estate. Always a certain velocity of real estate. There's a few factors that are never going to change. Death, divorces,
right,
and more importantly, 1031 tax-deferred exchanges. 70% of all transactions are fueled by tax-deferred exchanges. Take all the cash out of one property, move it to another property, invest that cash plus more, if it's available, and you defer the capital gains. 70% of all the transactions of investment property, shopping centers, office buildings, multifamily buildings, apartment buildings, and industrial buildings are 1031 motivated, tax deferred. So there's always a lot of transactions.
Yeah, I imagine that most of our audience is familiar with 1031 exchanges, but would you say that your knowledge and your ability to shepherd people through the process of 1031 exchanges is one of the keys to your success?
Yes, absolutely. My background is in accounting. I graduated from American University with a background in accounting. And it's that background that got me into investment sales and also got me into 1031 tax deferred exchanges. And it does represent 70% of all transactions. So people think that somehow, some way, real estate, residential and commercial are tied, and they're really not. Because with residential, 90% is financing. It's so interest rate driven. Only 10% is equity. On commercial, when we do deals, it's typically 65% lending, 35% equity. But again, 70%, most deals are 1031 motivated.
Interesting. So for somebody interested in learning about commercial real estate or getting into commercial real estate as far as being a principal, they really do need to understand that process and work with people who are familiar with the process, right? You're playing with serious money and some serious
Obviously, that's where the lion's share of all the transactions are occurring. So, yeah, you must be familiar with the simple rules of Section 1031 of the IRS Code for tax-deferred exchanges.
Interesting. You mentioned something I picked up on, that you went to American University, and the name of your company is American Investment Properties. Is there a connection there? Is that why you...
Absolutely.
Is that how you did?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is a connection there. Very simply, I learned a lot and had a great time at American University, and I wanted to use my skill set, my knowledge, and also the fact that I did have fun there. I wanted to have a career that I enjoyed, and I do very much, and I'm glad I named it American.
Now, I went through your book, I read your book, and I know a lot of what you do is give advice to the younger generation. So talking about school and university, what would you tell an 18-year-old who's interested in this business? Somebody well, I guess an 18-year-old is a college student, but somebody who's in college or graduating college, is this the right business for them to pursue, in your opinion?
Listen, my first advice is follow your heart.
Right.
I'm a salesman.
Right.
Was I born a salesman? Did I become a salesman? I think I became one. So my first advice to anyone, no matter what, is do what you love. Okay?
Right.
Just that simple. Just leave it there. Now, if, you don't know what you want to be, or if you're considering a career in sales, I think it's an excellent way to make a living. It's a career, just like a lawyer, an accountant, a doctor, and it comes with that much expertise, but it also comes with that much of a reward system. Right. The money that could be made in sales is equal to that in any profession.
Well, and talking about the brokerage business specifically, what are some of the keys? I mean, you've been doing this now for 27, 30 years. What's some of the keys to your success, and what's some of the advice you'd give to some of these younger people maybe getting into the field?
My advice to anyone getting into commercial real estate is, first off, list to exist. Your relationship should be with the sellers. At American Investment Properties, we do three things. We only work on exclusive listings. We only work for sellers. We don't do any buyer representation. And we only work in this marketplace that we know well. Right. We only do investment sales in the Long Island, Brooklyn, Queens area because it's a marketplace that we know well. So only exclusives, only investment sales, only local, only commercial properties. We're experts at this.
Let's take that last point for a moment, because the average person might think that you say you're a real estate broker, so hey, do I call you to sell my house? But you're very specialized, right? You don't deal with residential, you only deal with commercial. And that's right. You say that's not a weakness, that's a key to your success, actually. Yes,
absolutely, and it's even more so than just commercial real estate. It's specifically investment sales, not leasing.
Interesting.
We don't lease properties. We leave that to those people with the relationships with the tenants. If you have a great relationship with Starbucks, that's the way those relationship works. We want to be the very best at what we do. That's simple. If you're looking to sell a commercial property in Brooklyn, Queens, or Long Island, office building, shopping center, multifamily, or industrial, we're going to get you more money than anyone else, period. It's what we do year in and year out.
Now, did you have that laser focus when you first started American? Did you know you wanted to zero in on commercial, or did you think that you might have some interest in residential, or was commercial always your...
Always, yeah, always.
What made you gravitate towards commercial real estate?
Number one, I did work for a commercial real estate broker prior to starting American Investment Properties. I started with a regional firm, an excellent firm. I learned a lot. That firm is still successful to this day, right. And they're dear friends of mine over. So I did. I worked for a competitor who's a friend, and I'm proud to say that over the since 2001, and now we're in 2024, in 23 years, we've carved our own expertise and professionalism.
And I know you personally, and so, I think that I understand that you're the type of person who has that kind of focus because you're a disciplined person, even outside of work. And let's just talk a little bit about your routine as a person. I know you're a bit of a health fanatic as well, right? So does that contribute to your success as a real estate broker?
That's a great question. Does my, workout regimen, does my basic personality contribute? Listen, let's talk about what makes me successful, and then I'll determine where that came from. Yeah, because that's a great question. What makes me successful and what would make the next person successful is one thing. This is really simple things when it comes to business, and that's focus. Where you put your time and your energy is where you will succeed. Period. Full stop. My strongest hours for me are between 8 a.m. and noon. Of course, 1 to 7 o'clock, I function really highly. I go to the gym. But in the morning, I have my most energy. That is when I must focus and do my most important work. My most important work is prospecting. I prospect when I have the most energy Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday. Not as much now in this part of my career. Right. I'm on the phone with commercial real estate owners. Fair enough, I've known them. Sure, of course. I've known most of the owners on Long Island for decades. Right. And I'm talking to them about strategies. What's next? How do we leverage what they want in the high interest market that we're in? How do we plan as interest rates drop to do acquisitions or dispositions? I am an advisor in that capacity. I have my master's from NYU in real estate development. I have my certified commercial investment member, CCIM. And yeah, I have my master's in this. I do. I know commercial real estate.
Yeah. Many of us reading the papers see that, depending on which paper you're reading, there's a doomsday scenario in commercial real estate 2024 because of the reasons you mentioned, high interest rates particularly. But, I'm sure you've gone through many cycles and whether we're in a down cycle or not, what's your advice to people when you go through times where the volume isn't there as in years past? I mean, do you just keep doing what you do?
A very important question. It's a huge question. There are good years and there are bad years, but let's talk about a better understanding so you could be in this business for the long term and understand what you're looking at, okay? So in any 10-year slice, 1970 to 1980, 1980 to 1990, what's the percentage of properties in a marketplace which sell, change hands? Not only is it predictable, it's almost to a small percentage, exactly the same decade after decade, not year after year. There are changes. There are some years, more conducive, but decade after decade, what's the number? Yeah. 2.6%. 2.6% of all properties change hands. So, no, I cannot tell you what's going to happen in any 1, 3, 5 year period. Right. You take a salesperson. You want a piece of that investment sales pie. That's it. 2.6% of the marketplace is going to change hands. As a commercial real estate broker, how much are you going to capture and why? That's it. Now, people always say, in the 70s, it was done through mail. Well, obviously, it's more, now, we have email. Nothing's changed. The numbers haven't changed. In the 80s, we had fax machines. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I wanted to ask you about when you got into this business and started the company, early on, it must have been a totally different landscape. I mean, the technology in the last 30 years, right? I mean, you joke about fax machines and stuff like that being replaced by email, but we're far more sophisticated now in the world. So even though you have new tools available to you, you still think it's the same core business, personal, interpersonal skills and so forth?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
Interesting.
Yeah. 2.6% of all the properties have changed hands. From the best of my knowledge, I can see since the 70s, over the last, 50 years, and 2.6% have traded hands in the last decade. So what's changed? Not a lot. Yes. The phones maybe were used a lot more. I still, as you know, use the phone. I wear out headsets and I throw them away because I tear through them, being on them, so many hours a day. But no, the interpersonal communications, the knowledge of the business, the fundamentals never change. Networking, dealing with people, no, has not changed, even though the technology has changed.
So you'd say probably with all these years of experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that you've probably dealt with or at least spoken to most owners on Long Island. They know you by name.
I hope so, and I would think so. I've done everything imaginable to try to be in touch. I love being a commercial real estate broker. I do. It's a passion. It's a fun thing. And I try to reach out to as many people as I possibly can. I truly believe that we are simply the very, very best at what we do. I'm constantly trying to figure out, different ways to give us a competitive advantage. I think it's a combination of things. It's not just one thing. But yeah, I'm in touch with, over a certain square footage amount, every single owner.
Interesting. And, again, I like to talk about the challenges, Ron, because I think that's where your depth of experience really translates to the audience based on your experience and stuff. So, is there a challenging transaction or a challenging deal that you were part of where maybe you could point to and say, look, I got myself into a pickle, or there was a situation and this is how we got out of it and this is how I solved the problem? Is there one that stands out for you maybe?
Sure, absolutely. And I appreciate that, dealing with the challenges. Every single transaction that we do, every single sale, we do something called a success story. And we talk about the challenges, the actions that we take, and obviously the results that we're able to bring in terms of dollar per square foot, dollar on the deals, and then cap rate, which is a very important industry number. So each and every deal, we talk about a success story and the challenges that are involved. Ray, all deals have challenges. Mm-hmm. Let's just start right there. Mm-hmm. If this was easy, number one, everyone would do it. And number two, the sellers, landlords wouldn't need us. We're hired because we need to outperform the market.
It's interesting.
We're given the difficult assignments to do difficult things with many challenges. But I want to answer your question, though, because I think you hit on what's very, very important. Why you'd want to work with someone like American Investment Properties if you own a property on Long Island or Queens or Brooklyn. A lot of the challenges that we face, the most difficult ones, are local problems.
Interesting.
Yeah. So where do we solve the hardest problems? At the building department, with local people that we know, with relationships. That's the key to solving the real big problems that are insurmountable to companies that are in D.C. or in Seattle. We're local. I know the guy who's the mayor of the town. Right. I know the guy who can help us at the building department. I know an expediter who can help get this closed by the end of the year. Right. It's relationships.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, because of technology and because people are people, there are a number of people who might say, look, I have a building or buildings and I can sell them on my own. What do I need a broker for?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? How would you answer that person?
Well, it is true. First thing I want to do is establish that, listen, I'm a numbers guy, so I'm not going to hold back when it comes to numbers. 92% of all transactions in our market are sold through a commercial real estate broker. 8% aren't. And what I would say to the 8% of the people that say, hey, I don't want to pay a fee. I want to do it myself. I just want to say to them, number one, once you close, there are no redos. You don't get to come back and say, hey, I really should have used a broker. And I left a lot of money on the table.
Right.
Because once you're closed, I'm sorry, but there are no redos. You can't redo it, okay? That's the first thing I want to say to them. And number two, it really is an expertise. And over the years, I'm a student of this. I'm a student of this, and I use tools. Some of them, obviously we're familiar with, people call it the multiple listing service of commercial real estate, LoopNet. American Investment Properties, we not only need LoopNet, but we need premium LoopNet listings. And we need a relationship with the good people over at LoopNet to assure that all of our listings are correct, up to date, and prominent. Same thing with Crexy. Other real estate listing services. I used to track how many people visited American Investment Properties, AIcommercialrealestate.com. I don't know what that number is, but they're mind-boggling. Right. There's an up-to-date catalog at all times of all our available listings.
I think given the amount of time you've been in this business, and your success now, it's easy to talk about where you are now. But let's go back. How long were you in the business before you said, okay, to yourself that I'm successful at this, I'm good at this, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm making money? Did it take a period of time?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that because, I definitely think that, I think that a large part of reading this book or understanding a commercial real estate broker is, internalized. Why would I want to be a commercial real estate broker? And if I did try it, what do I expect? I've often heard it said that, I forget the exact percentage, 80 or 90% of what you learn as a commercial real estate broker, you learn in year one.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay, wow. Well, that's a wow moment. Now, 80 or 90% of what you learn for your whole career, you're going to learn in year one. So people say to me, when can I expect to, close my first deal? I can't speak for other firms because I don't know how they conduct their prospecting. But at American, as you know, we get licensed and we get on the phone quickly. We prospect, we work as a team. I go on a lot of meetings for many of the salespeople. So we work as a team. There's a high level of professionalism. But the first year, I've seen people close deals quickly, and I've seen people really struggle. But usually, after the first year, there becomes a more predictable number of deals that most salespeople close.
I want to have a little fun for a moment. So share with us, if you don't mind, let's use a number of, maybe $1 million. When you've made $1 million worth of commission, or did you go out and spend it and buy a new car, or what'd you do with the first $1 million that you've made in the business?
I opened the firm in 2001. And I made a commission. I sold a portfolio of properties in Hempstead. I think there was like 6 or 7 of them.
Okay.
And the commission was, it was a co-broke. Yeah, it was a co-broke. I made a commission of $151,000.
Wow. Okay.
And I was, I think it was like 2001 or 2002. And I got asked that question. The guy handed me the check and said, "What are you going to buy?" And honestly, at that moment, and I was honest and candid with him, I bought a big screen television because in 2001 or 2002, that was a big thing. Right. It was a few grand. It was a few $1,000s. I don't think my joy is spending it. Somehow, some way, I'm wired where I love making it. I making that deal for $151,000 just felt good. These are challenges that we all, have to overcome. These are deals where you have to win the assignment. Once you win the assignment, you have to find the buyer. You got to see it to closing. I enjoy the whole process.
Right. Now, Ron, I'll give you a compliment, and only partially because you're in front of me, which is to say, in the 20 years I've known you, you seem not to have aged at all. But if we look at the numbers and maybe your birthday and stuff like that, you're at the point where you probably could have retired or could retire now, and you probably could have retired earlier. Do you ever have that thought, or do you want to keep going?
A couple of things. Thanks. I appreciate that. In April, I'm going to turn 60. 60. Right. 60. I think of 60 years old as old people. And I feel like I'm, I'm 42 years old. I do. I feel, right in the prime of my life. I did have a financial setback. It happens. I went through a divorce, and it changed my financial position. I think I was, through my earnings, and my investments, in a position to retire. I do. I don't feel that way today. But number one, life happens. And leave the past in the past, and look at tomorrow with the brightest outlook. But I think the question is, number one, I love what I'm doing. Number two, I'm looking forward to the next decade. I'm looking forward to growing American investment properties. I'm looking forward to closing real estate transactions. More importantly, as you know, I have a 11-year-old and soon to be 10-year-old. So I'm looking forward to the next decade with them, not traveling too far from home, working a lot. I love this business. Yeah.
And we mentioned a little bit about technology and CoStar, LoopNet being kind of like the equivalent of multiple.
Right.
But it seems to me that a lot of commercial deals get done. I think, what do you call it? Pocket listings and off-market deals and that type of thing. So I guess my question to you is that the interpersonal skills that you have and the relationships you have with commercial buyers and sellers,
right?
Does that lend itself to deals that, for whatever reasons, you've got sellers maybe who are selling a property in a family, they don't want it to be publicized that, they're selling a property, or if they've had tenants for many years and they just, a lot, do deals get done quietly in commercial real estate?
Very much so. Very much so. Yes, very much so. Unlike homes, which I think, get put on multiple listing service very quickly. Right. There is no statistic I can't share with you. There's no place to find it of what percentage of deals are, are quiet deals and what percentage of deals are publicly advertised. So there's no way in knowing. However, if I had to guess, I would say a tremendous percentage are done quietly, confidentially. A third, maybe more. Let's start with a third. 33% of all transactions are done between a broker and principals that broker knows. Relationships are everything at every level along every way. Relationships are everything, your reputation, your relationships. So yes, many transactions are done quietly.
It seems to me that in your role as a broker and almost like an advisor,
senior broker
and an advisor to your clients, that there might be times when you as much as you have an interest in getting a deal done where you think maybe it's not a good fit for a buyer or seller that I mean, are there instances where you tell people, look, I'm selling something, it may not be for you, it may be for a different type of buyer, and I'm gonna probably advise you to pass on this one. Do you sometimes turn down deals because you just know that it may not be a good fit?
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Is that difficult to say no to the money and the quick?
No. Fortunately, there's a lot of velocity, and you're going to do 2.6.
Right.
It's going to change hands. You have a certain piece of the marketplace. Not every building is a right fit for every owner. Or no, there's certainly times. No, you must be a long-term player.
Right.
No, this is a relationship business. Do the right thing, and you'll be rewarded over time. Consistently do that. I'm a long-term thinker. So yeah.
And I know you have some connection to Florida. And we know in the past, 5-6 years with COVID and so forth, that it seems like everybody from New York and Long Island is moving to Florida. I guess this piggybacks on the question about retirement. Have you ever had that temptation to just pick up and move to Miami?
No. My whole family's in Miami. My brother's a prominent real estate attorney in Miami, and my parents live in Aventura, and they're retired. No, I haven't. There's a lot of activity in New York. I can't predict the future.
Right.
We're going through some growing pains in New York, particularly New York City right now. But as far as Long Island is concerned, in our market, Brooklyn and Queens, business is excellent, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but where my feet are right now in Long Island, New York.
So interesting, and let's talk a little bit about the book, because I'm trying to figure out when you found the time to write a book, number one, and number two, I was surprised when I read the book that it seems like you're giving away a lot of trade secrets.
Give it all away. Give it all away.
And so my question is, first of all, where did you find the time to write a book? What was the motivation of writing a book? And do you feel as though you laid it all out there, and that someone's going to read this book, as I have, and said, I'm going to copy everything he did, and I'm going to just, I'm going to steal some of Ron's secrets? I mean, what was the motivation to putting it all out there?
I think it's the first question of the entire interview that we spoke about. And yes, I'm raising, I'm a divorced dad, and I'm raising two boys, 10 and 11.
Okay.
And they're everything to me,
Yeah.
Drew and Chase. And in some ways, I wrote the book for them, to them. I had them in mind. So when I wrote the pages and I wanted to pass along the knowledge, I'm writing an open letter to my children that everybody can read. It's on Amazon.com to purchase as an Audible book, as an ebook, or as a physical book.
Yeah.
So yes, you can buy it. And yes, I did not hold anything back.
Right.
And it's all there. And so am I scared that is going to bite me and someone's going to read it and do more business than me? No.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot more to it, than that. I'm hoping that it just makes my world a little bigger. And but I wrote it, I did it, and I'm doing all these things because what we first spoke about is it's a joy. It's pleasure. It's fun.
Right.
It's fun. It's fun. Selling deals is fun. Playing sports and spending time with my kids is fun. The book was fun to write. To answer your question specifically, I started to learn about the book business about a year ago in February of last year. And I spoke to a few people, and they were going to help me write it, and then they flaked out. And I just stayed on top of it. I needed somebody to help me, write it. I found somebody on the internet, on searches, Google searches, and I met this individual, Zach. He's a 38-year-old, sort of a ghostwriter, book writer, and he helped me write it. But I enjoyed it. So I don't mind, maybe over the summer on vacation, sitting and writing the book, and taking notes. And we're working with, Zach a little bit to write the book.
Now that you mention that, it kind of makes sense to me that this would be dedicated to your boys and written to them, because it seems like a lot of what you write can be applied not just to commercial real estate, but to anybody interested in sales specifically, but even not sales, anybody interested in business. This is like a as much about commercial real estate as much as how to be successful in business type of book, in my opinion.
Right.
So what are some of the specific traits in people you think make them successful, could make them successful?
Sure. I grew up, strangely enough, wanting to be a salesman. And I started to read Earl Nightingale books, and How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success by Frank Bettke. And I read them all. I loved them. And maybe I gained a little bit of a positive perspective just by immersing myself, into these books. I'm a natural positive thinker. And I think that probably came, I wasn't born that way. I think that I read these books, and I think that I integrated them into myself. So I wanted to write this book probably in my head all my life. One book where you could learn how to sell properly. Then some things I saw, it's never one thing. It's always a combination of things. Then one of the most important things is my brother said to me about 5 years ago, the most important thing on this planet is listening. And I was like, what? He goes, because that's because you're not listening. I said, of course I'm listening. You don't have to do anything to listen. You just stand there. You just be there and you're listening. And what he said to me was, no one is listening. And I was like, wait, you have to listen. You have ears. And he said, no, you got to pay attention. You have to focus on what the other person is saying. You have to process their words and their feelings. And I was like, what? And I promised myself for 1 month, I was going to repeat back either aloud or to myself what the other person was saying. So I heard them. After a month, my world started to really change.
Interesting. And one thing I probably should have mentioned earlier or asked you about earlier, that's been on my mind, is that, I know you've won a number of, awards in the business, in the industry from, various groups and so forth. Talk a little bit about what you've won, and is there a reason why you sometimes don't talk about it? Is it because you want to keep thinking about the future and not the past? Yeah. Is that what that's about?
Yeah, that's what it's about. Listen, if you're going to do some dynamic things, you're going to get some attention. As a owner of a small brokerage firm on Long Island, it's very difficult to get the large assignments. Okay. They give them to large firms. Okay. Publicly traded firms do business a lot of times with other publicly traded firms. Big shopping center assignments might go to Cushman and Wakefield or Colliers before they're going to go to a local firm. I think we do a better job, but in American investment properties, it's very difficult for us to win the huge assignments. So we make up with it on deals probably, under 15, 10, even 5 million. We do a lot of transactions. But to be named Broker of the Year is a difficult assignment because a lot of those listings are going to Douglas Elliman and different companies. So in 2017, when I won Commercial Broker of the Year, I thought it was substantial because I did that on my own.
Right.
A lot of that was on my own, not through salespeople. I sold Cherry Valley Shopping Center for $27 million and some other transactions, which made me stand out. But no, I don't ever mention it.
Yeah, and I've actually meant to ask you about that. Yeah. So I'm glad you answered it.
I'm always looking forward.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to ask you about is I imagine that after all these years, it must be incredibly rewarding, as much as you talk about prospecting, that every once in a while, I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that it sometimes works the other way, right? So sometimes maybe you've sold a building for an owner, and he's been so happy with the way you handled the transaction.
Yeah.
Where he calls you up out of the blue and goes, guess what, Ron, I have another building I want to sell to maybe a few years later or something like that, and you're my guy. That must be an incredibly gratifying feeling.
It is. It's not, sort of in the dark, as you mentioned. All of a sudden I get a phone call. Again, in the morning, Monday through Friday, I'm on the phone prospecting.
Right.
So I'm in touch with those people on a regular basis.
Got it.
I know about their lives.
Understood.
I know about their, their challenges, their brothers, their fathers, their mothers, their whole families. And I know of their plans.
Right.
So it's usually an outgrowth. I sold them the property. I'm in touch.
Yeah.
I don't get a phone call like, "Hey, 10 years ago you sold me a property. We never spoke." No.
Right. You've been in
we
touch
speak.
with them.
Yeah. We speak every few months. So.
And I'm sure you've got a great memory, but is part of what you do making sure that you record these things and you have notes on everybody you've spoken to?
The truth is, I don't know that my memory is better or worse than anyone's, okay? But I also know that there's a certain human experience that we're bringing in here. And if I'm going to be in touch with 2,000 people,
right,
and they're going to share with me, their goals, I take careful notes. If they're talking, I'm typing. That's it. If they're talking, you're typing. Typing into a CRM, it's private. It's just, obviously it's all sorts of security encoded with passwords,
right.
And nobody wants to read my scribbles. But yes, if they're talking, I'm typing. And someone might say, if anything becomes available in Lindenhurst, let me know.
Right.
Now, how am I supposed to remember, unless it goes into a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, that I have a guy that's looking just for Lindenhurst. Now, I do. It's just, and I type it every time I speak to him. I retype it. Ron, same thing. Anything in Lindenhurst. And then all of a sudden, I'll see something in Lindenhurst, and I'll think of this particular buyer.
And what does it feel like when you're driving on the road, maybe going to the office, going home, going out, whatever it might be, and you drive by and you see a building that you have history with, that you've sold maybe more than once over the years? What is that feeling like? Is it gratifying to say, listen, I have something to do with the landscape on Long Island?
Yeah,
I've influenced it in some way?
Absolutely, yeah. There's great pride in that. There are certain buildings in particular that give me just tremendous pride. I am not sure why, but every time my mind goes to 1103 Stewart Avenue, it's a Garden City office building. It's a gorgeous building. Ron Morey, great friend and a tremendous guy that I've learned from, gave me the assignment. I sold the building in 2009. It was a $9.6 million deal. The deal had so many problems. I drive by that, and the new owner, I know he's doing well with it. It's just one that I guess I work in Garden City. Right. I live close by. I pass it, and it's just pure joy.
And I noticed earlier you mentioning some of the other, I guess, competitors in the industry and stuff like that, but you tend not to really speak badly of them, right? I mean, you're competing with them, but you get along with them on some level as well, right? Most of the brokers I won't say every single broker on Long Island, but most of the other brokerage firms, you've got a good relationship
Excellent. No, we're all in this together. Okay. Those competitors, for the most part, we're really not competing on. They form their own relationships. I have my relationships, and we can help each other. There are times when, perfect example, I'm co-broking a deal right now with the old firm that I worked for. I left in 2001, and we're as cooperating brokers on that particular transaction. So we're all in this together. And I think that's an important lesson, that treat everybody well. You're going to be in this with them for a long term. Today they might be competitors. Tomorrow, they might be your partners.
And you'd say that there's enough cake for everybody to eat, right? Everyone's eating and everyone's...
Well, that's just it. Exactly. There's enough money to be made if 2.6% of the several hundreds and hundreds of thousands of commercial, properties are going to sell, and 92% of them are, through commercial real estate brokers. That's a big pool of, I don't know that number for our markets, but I'm sure we could figure it out. Yeah, there's a lot of money there. I'm sure it's a huge number.
I mean, in addition to just, being laser focused on commercial real estate, though, I mean, obviously subjective to real estate and business, all business is subjective to the current economic climate and news and so forth. So what do? Do you keep up on everything that's going on in the world as much as possible in the markets, compare it to commercial real estate? I mean, you spend a lot of time reading newspapers and stuff, going through it.
I happen to be interested in this. This is a personal passion of mine. It happens to be of personal interest. Why am I interested in the Fed rates? I'm fundamentally interested as a human being.
Right.
So yes, I devour news. I love it. I do. I devour news. I love it. I'm constantly, listening to, information about the Fed, interest rates, job cuts, what the stock market is going to do,
right,
and how that's going to relate to commercial real estate. It's a personal interest of mine. And again, I'm fortunate that I love it. So, yeah, I devour news. I love it.
I'd probably say that, things like the news and numbers is the science, and then there's the interpersonal relationships as well. So, I mean, it seems to me like somebody in sales, especially with the career you've had, almost is like an amateur psychologist, right? So you kind of know human nature, right? You can tell when somebody's a serious buyer intuitively.
Right. We've worked on deals, you and I've mm-hmm. said to you, let me tell you what's going to happen in 3 months from now, in 6 months from now, right, because people are very predictable. And deals are very predictable. After working on, maybe thousands and thousands of deals over the years, people are very predictable. So, yeah, I think what really the direction that we're heading in, and the question really is, let's just say 80% of business is relationships, interpersonal connections. People do business with people they like.
Right.
And that's, 20% is that inside knowledge of commercial real estate, the leasing, the selling of the buildings, the ins and outs. But for the majority of your success, it's predicated on your interpersonal skills. I could have written a book. I have a master's degree from, I think, the absolute finest learning institution for commercial real estate on the planet, New York University. It's a great, great master's program. Okay. And I also have a CCIM. That's held by less than 6% of commercial real estate professionals. But I chose to write a book on the fundamentals of interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
Why? Because I think this is as important or more important, these skills. Listen, I think if I was going to say to one thing, if someone said to me, you have one chance to tell a prospective reader of this book why to read it, I would tell them one reason. 85% of the ultra wealthy, the entrepreneurs, the most important successful people in America started their careers in sales.
Interesting.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg? The success or the skills? I think it's the skills. Where did they learn those skills? In sales. Why aren't we teaching the sales skills?
Interesting.
They're not being taught. So I love sales. I write a book about it, okay? But it's, again, I think that when you're doing it and you're intimate with how to sell and, what's involved in your everyday, I think writing a book is a few things. Number one, yeah. Is it a little bit of all the sales books I've learned over the years? Yes. Is it a little bit of my experience? Yes. Is it things like my brother taught me? Yes. But I've delineated them into 9 skills.
Interesting.
Listen, they're my 9 skills.
Right.
T. Harv Eckert wrote a book in 2005 called The Millionaire Mind. I mention it in the book. He said there's 8 skills that go into being a millionaire. I have the same 8 in my 9.
Understood.
Okay, there's no mystery here. I don't know why we're not teaching a class on negotiations. I have no idea.
Interesting.
Is negotiations a critical part of the United States economy? Of course it is. Is it more important than algebra? Listen, I'm not here to,
Right.
I'm just saying, you ask the average person, are they good at negotiating? Yes. Who taught you how to do it?
Right.
I learned on my own. Let me try to teach you the 4 C's of negotiation so you can be a better negotiator.
It's interesting because, you sometimes hear in the news, especially more so now, that they sometimes talk about, some of the politicians and stuff talk about, oh, we got to bring back trade schools and we've got to teach kids how to go back to workshop and stuff like that. But you're pointing out here today that, no one's really teaching negotiation skills. No one's teaching sales skills to kids. I mean, that's what this book is doing. It's almost like you're throwing a lifeline to the industry, right? Saying, listen, we've got to keep the young people engaged by learning some of these skills so that the future of commercial brokerage is bright.
Right. So let's look. Right. So let's look and say that these are the skill sets that 85% of the most super successful people on the planet learned. And if I go through the skills, you're going to say public speaking. Obviously, you got to stand as a leader.
Right.
In any way. You got to be able to speak.
Right.
So obviously, public speaking, natural,
Well, let me interject. Yeah. One of the most common fears about public speaking, because everybody wants to be a good public speaker, but there's this fear. So I'll ask you personally, do you get afraid at this point of speaking publicly, or are you?
I don't. No, I don't. And the only reason why is practice. That's it.
Interesting.
Keep it simple. Practice. You know why people are scared of public speaking so badly?
Just don't do it enough?
No. Glossophobia. Glossophobia. It's Greek. The first part is fear, and the second part is tongue. It was widely believed through evolution, it's in the book, that if you spoke in public and the tribe that you were in didn't like what you were saying, they would banish you. So you kept quiet because you didn't want to get banished. Now, once we're past the fact that we're not going to get banished and it's 2024 and there's no tribe here, then, we can get past glossophobia, but it's hardwired into your brain through evolution not to speak in public. So practice is the only way through.
I don't want to use the word regret, but I think I'll use the word sacrifice. So I'm not going to ask you if you have any regrets, but I will ask you, do you feel like you've had to sacrifice, and what did you have to sacrifice for the success that you've had?
Wow. That's a real personal question. I got married later in life. I think that I was really career focused. I wanted to own my own company. Not everyone does that. I'm 59 and a half years old, and my kids are only, Drew is 11 and Chase is going to be 10 this month. I think that I started a little bit later. I was very focused on my skill set. I definitely think that that's a real personal thing. I enjoy it all, and I'm really grateful the fact that I have Drew and Chase in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think the boys are interested in commercial real estate? Too early for them at this point, right?
Right. Absolutely. Drew is 100% convinced he's going to be a wide receiver in the NFL.
Okay.
And I think Chase feels pretty good about his prospects in the NBA. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with their professional sports
listen,
careers.
as good as the money, it sounds like as good as the money in commercial real estate, probably being wide receiver or in the NFL or a point guard in the NBA is probably a very lucrative career.
Like I said, they're 10 and 11.
Yeah.
They might change, and I'll be there for them, no matter what. If it's sales, if it's sports, if it's anything in between, do what you love.
I want to ask you one more thing about the book. Was there anything that you learned as you were writing the book that you thought to yourself, well, wait a minute, I know I'm writing this or I'm putting it out there, but I myself, it's reinforcing something I knew, or did you discover something in the process of writing the book that you learned yourself?
Blown away. Writing a book about what I love, I am, will continue to be blown away. Blown away. I had no idea, zero, how important social media is becoming and the negatives. Listen, I'm not going to vilify social media, but I will tell you that screen time is not the friend of children. I was blown away to learn about childhood obesity. I was blown away to learn about family conflicts. I'm not blown away because I watch my kids flip through TikToks that their attention spans are zero. Right. But I'm not, blown away because it creates endorphins, that their sleep is disrupted. I don't know that I had this level of activity when I was Drew and Chase's age, but I will tell you this, their quality and quantity of sleep is being affected by the stimulus. It is stimulus.
Yeah. And, I wanted to ask this, Ron, because we started off the interview about an hour ago talking about, the current state of the commercial brokerage business and commercial real estate. And probably in the last hour, there's probably been about 4 or 5 articles that have been published somewhere in this country talking about how real estate is we're in for a rough time. If you don't mind, walk us back off the ledge a little bit again. What's the future of commercial real estate? Is there a future? You touched upon this in the beginning, but tell us where the future of real estate is, commercial real estate.
Sure. No, I got you. When I became broker of the year, I was interviewed about, I think it was January of 2017. I was interviewed about retail real estate being finished.
Right.
They called it the retail apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I just said, no, it's not an apocalypse.
Yeah.
No, listen, there is a lot of sales online. It's no secret at this point. I started to see it personally in 2005. I lived in Manhattan at the time, and I went to buy 1 bar of soap, and then I looked at Amazon, and I said I could buy 10.
Right.
Not for me. If I could buy 10 for the price of 1,
right,
and they deliver it to me, I started to buy on Amazon. So this is not new to me. I mean, I discovered this Ivory soap 19 years ago.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, but the experience, as this progresses, I want the retail experience.
Yeah.
I'm often in Roosevelt Field Mall. I want to try things on. I want to feel them. I want the experience. Retail is changing.
All right.
So is office. No question about it.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go, because the way that you were saying that people were talking about retail just a few years ago relative to Amazon, people are now talking about office and because of remote work and COVID and so forth, the challenges in the office. Talk to us about the challenges in the office space.
Technology is the great changer of America. We had changes like the railroad, and I think some of the greatest changes with the invention of air conditioning. And this technology that we have right now is as meaningful as the railroads. It's as meaningful as the telephone. These are meaningful changes. So you can work from home. The technology is there.
Yeah.
You can literally set up a desk anywhere in your home, and you can have internet service, cellular service.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine who just got 3 monitors for his home.
Yeah, that friend's me. I do, right. So what is the future of office? It's in flux. Yeah. There was a pandemic really changed everything.
Yeah.
Technology collided with a pandemic, so people started to work from home and started to like it. I personally believe that it's great, and working out of an office is great, but I think it's going to be a mixture. And there are certain industries that's not going to work.
Yeah.
As a commercial real estate broker, we need synergy. We need to be in the office. We need to understand what are your buyers' needs, what are your sellers' needs, and there's a synergy there. So I don't think it's going to happen to our industry, but I can certainly see why lawyers work from home.
Interesting. So we're in a little bit of a flux, and we're still trying to figure it out.
That's
but
right.
There's a future for probably some kind of, I don't know if they call it hybrid or whatever. But
That's
office,
right.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a certain hybrid. I do. I think that it's just like retail got maybe repurposed, and the retailer started to realize, hey, I better, focus more on the experience.
Yeah.
Hey, come on in. Let me show you a cool new product rather than, these are, popping off the shelves by themselves.
Interesting. So I want to thank you, Ron. I want to close and thank you. Our guest today was Ron Koenigsberg, who's the author of this brand new book called Power Broker. And I'll tell you, Ron, that this is a fresh copy we're just using today, but my copy at home, I did something I haven't done in a long time, which is, as much as we talk about technology, I took some notes the old-fashioned way with a pencil on the side of the book, on the side of each page. And I can tell you I have a lot of notes. There's a lot of interesting stuff in this book. I highly recommend it. And it's available both on Amazon and Audible, right, for those who want
That's right. Yeah, those are all Amazon companies.
Oh, that's right. Audible's an Amazon company.
That's right. So if you just go to Amazon, you could buy a physical copy of the book. You could buy a e-book.
Right.
Or I actually, in my thick New York accent, I read the audio book.
Now, I was going to tell you that I thought that was a very key thing, that it sounds very authentic because I know it's you who's reading your own words.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Enjoyed learning a lot today and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.